I think it goes without saying that I am a huge fan of the Division franchise, but I'm also a very strong critic. Now, I generally enjoy the Division 2, but when you have followed the franchise since 2013, it is nearly impossible to ignore all the wasted potential. To anyone who joined the series after the Division 1 launch, especially those that only began playing in Division 2, I fear most of you never knew what the franchise could have been, or just how close we came to actually having greatness. So for all of you that have forgotten, for all of you that never knew, let's take a quick look at what could have been. Having made many videos on the stat systems of Division 2, having talked about the problems with skills, PvP, balancing, and just many other issues in the game, the funny thing I notice is that much of the Division's core concepts originally contained a lot of these ideas that, I've shown you. So yes, I may bash on the devs from time to time, but at one point they had a system that I know would have worked much better than it does currently. Now, a lot of the times when I say devs, I generally mean anyone who has, something to do with the creation or marketing of the game. But when I criticize the devs, when I say something like the devs are incompetent, this is generally aimed at the upper level guys or the shot callers, who at some point decided the smart way to develop this game was to ignore all the work done before and attempt to oversimplify a complex game. I mean, no wonder we struggle with balance and diversity still today. They made really boring and safe choices because things felt better. Now, I don't know about you, but I would much rather have things that are better, not just think they are better. Looking over much of the old material, there are some things that just stick out that would have been cool for Division 1, like the mobile gaming companion drone, or the ability to use stealth. Now, I know there were reasons why they took them out, but, it's hard to just ignore the fact that those things would have been fun in the game. Plus many of the other concepts we saw from the original that got removed only to be put back in Division 2, like the Firefly Blinder, the healing drone, control points, and even clans. However, there are other things that could have made both games much more interesting, like the vast variety of skills and abilities. They were not just click button go boom, some were abilities that activated a buff like being immune from damage when you're at 1 health for 3 seconds, or using Isaac to emit something like a sonic pulse to form the Division's version of a ground pound that are seen in many other games. This also included grenades and weapon damage buffs. The point being, skills were not just a thing for skill builds to shoot. They were there to offer something for any playstyle. We also see 2 other interesting ideas, the main one actually being missions in the Dark Zone, giving PvE guys something to do in that area so it's not just a wasted space for them. And we also see something that I feel should actually still be in the game, and that is the damage variation of weapons. And what I mean by this is that weapons could hit from a range of something like 100 damage to 120 damage. So maybe one shot does, like 111, another shot does 118, something like that. But the nice thing about the system is that it allows more customization. For example, right now, the game is based on crits, headshot, and, weapon damage. There really isn't much variety for DPS builds besides, the gear set or the brand set that they're using. However, when you actually change the variation on the weapon damage, you can get a bunch of different uniqueness for these builds. So for example, you could add stats that add minimum damage. So instead of, having a base damage of 100, you could have a base damage of 105 and a max damage of 120. But you could also change your maximum damage. So you'd have a base of 100, but you'd have a maximum of like 125 or 130. And you could just adjust that with different stats. So you could have a really, really strong potential damage build of, having a minimum damage of 100, but having a maximum damage of like 200. Or you could have like a really concise build that's kind of, just trying to get a constant damage. So you might have 120 damage minimum and 125 damage maximum. So you always know that you're going to be in this range. Or you could be that crazy guy who's just trying to get those big numbers all the time. And so not only does this offer diversity, but it just offers even more to theory crafting and just the RPG elements in general. Also looking back, even minor things made the early gameplay stand out more. Like how bodies were not always covered by tarps or inside body bags, which just added to the gritty tension that the game strived to convey. Now I know that there's probably some sort of reason that they, decided to cover up a lot of this stuff, probably for, just the general ratings of the game, maybe to be released in China. I don't necessarily know all the reasons, but again, looking back at it, it's really, just kind of disappointing to see that it was, kind of removed or blocked or just cut out of the game. Another thing is how the world seems to be, huge. I mean, it doesn't seem to be just restricted by a small section of the city. But it might also include some of the surrounding areas, offer tons of potential future content and expansions. The game just seems like it has so much to offer, and, looking back that far, it just doesn't seem that the restrictions that we now assume with the Division are there, It doesn't seem like we know the developers are just going to abandon the game after a year and no longer really produce content or anything meaningful for the game. Because the Division at least appeared to be intended to be a huge online presence, not just a sparsely, occasionally developed section of a game. This is of course my greatest disappointment with Massive as a whole. They had so much they could add to the first game, and yet they abandoned it basically as quickly as they could, which is almost exactly what we are seeing currently with The Division 2. They really just lack this dedication to take the game to the next level, and to me that is just incredibly disappointing. Like the saying goes, a chain is only as strong as the weakest link, and so many people have worked on this game, and they have done an exceptional job. I mean, truly, there are people on this game that have done an exceptional job. I mean, look at the environment. I mean, the environmental artists in this game have done an amazing job. And not to mention, the people that actually developed the Snowdrop engine and continue to work on the Snowdrop engine. They've done a remarkable job. And yet, none of this matters because the people who make the decisions on the game have just repeatedly shown almost a disdain for the fan base. They don't care about the player base. They don't care about the brand. They really just want to hype the next pump and dump game and move on as quickly as possible. And honestly, I know that the Division just deserves better than the treatment that it's gotten. I really hope that something develops with Division 3. I hope they go back to the basics. I hope they go back and figure out how they should actually treat the game. If not, I hope they make the best out of what's remaining with Division 2. Maybe they continue to add new life to it, continue to add new content to it over the next couple of years. I don't know. To me, that just sounds like a company that is no longer producing games that are worth it to me. I mean, they might be good for the short term, but of course, when it's just constantly turning into a disappointment because of the lack of attention to detail, because of the lack of commitment, I don't want to invest my time in these games. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for looking back at the Division 1 with me. I'll see you in the next one.